Pretrial conferences in Indiana. A lot of times we get phone calls for clients that are asking, what should I expect at this court date coming up that's labeled a pretrial conference? And the reality is you don't need to worry about much. In Indiana, when you're charged with a crime, the first hearing you're going to have in front of a judge is called your initial hearing. At your initial hearing, you're going to be read the charges that are alleged to be against you, and the potential penalties and your rights you have as a defendant in the state of Indiana living in the United States of America. After that initial hearing, the judge is typically going to set what's called a pretrial conference. And what that really means is it's a status hearing. After your initial hearing, the discovery process starts. And what that means is it's the time where the state sends over all the evidence that they have against you for that particular case. Discovery also can be on the other hand, where your attorney can send over evidence to the prosecutor showing that you are innocent of the charges that are levied against you. Also in the discovery process are things like depositions, or in Marion County called tape statements. That's a time where the parties can take statements under oath of witnesses, either state witnesses or defense witnesses, to get a better understanding of what they would testify to if this case were to go to trial. So in between this discovery process, it can take months, sometimes years, depending on the severity of the case. Well, the court isn't going to want to just not set any hearings while this is going on. They're going to want updates, and that's what these pretrial conferences are for. It's a status update for the court to get a better understanding of where the case lies, what parties need what. State, have you turned over all the evidence? Do you have an expectation of when you're going to turn over all of that evidence? Defense, is there anything that you plan on turning over to the state? Has a plea offer been extended? Has the parties conducted depositions? So a pretrial conference is just a time for the parties to explain to the judge where the case is at. Now, sometimes courts will set pretrial conferences pretty frequently, meaning you could go to court once a month. A lot of times there's some judges that want the cases to move quickly, so they want frequent updates. Other times in other courts and other counties, you'll see that these are set less frequently. A lot of times too, different courts in different counties could have different names for what is a pretrial conference. Some courts label these as status conferences, some courts label these as review hearings. But a pretrial conference, a review hearing, a status conference, it's all the same thing. It's just for the court to get an update on where the parties are at in the process of the case. Typically, if a judge is asking for more updates, it tends to make the case progress a little bit more quickly. If the parties are going to court, it's on the top of their mind, doesn't get bogged down in cases that aren't set. Usually helps the discovery process speed up a little bit. Now, also at these pretrial conferences, if the discovery is going slow, or if you are needing something from the state hasn't provided yet, you can also ask the judge to set certain deadlines for getting evidence. Now, if the state is still waiting on, for example, a blood result for a DUI case, the judge may give them a little bit more leeway, knowing that they're going to have to go through a state department of toxicology. It could take a little bit longer. But for most things that the state has readily available at the beginning of the case, when you have your initial hearing, if that's not turned over within 30 days, you can ask for deadlines, you can ask for exclusions to keep certain evidence out if the state takes too long to provide it to you. The biggest thing to remember is that when you go to these pretrial conferences, to not freak out. These aren't trials, these aren't plea dates. Nothing crazy is going to happen unless you want it to. A lot of times I have clients that are very nervous about these pretrial conferences, and I assure them nothing is going to happen to you that day. You're not going into a trial, you're not going to be blindsided by the judge doing anything like making you plead guilty, putting you in jail, or anything like that. They really are essentially a status conference just for the judge to get an update on the case. If you're facing criminal charges or have questions, please give us the Marc Lopez Law Firm a phone call, 317-632-3642, and always remember, plead the fifth.